Greetings, Don the Crown here with a quick follow-up to my recent guide. There are a few details that either overlooked or wanted to add, so I figured I would make another video to tack them on. We're going to quickly go over the following: Pantheon choices, why champion, adrenaline and survivability, how to 6-link Reave and Blade flurry, and the leveling skill tree. For Pantheon, I personally prefer Solaris and Raslatha. Solaris because it's great for bossing where you're normally only against one enemy. Raslatha is the perfect minor Pantheon for us. While the first part can potentially save your life in a long boss fight, the part from Gorillus is truly amazing. I'll explain more in the adrenaline and survivability section. Next topic, why champion? I chose champion for this build because it provides you extreme damage for a crit based build. Let's take a look over the important nodes here. First to strike, last to fall has two parts to it. 1. Your hits permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life. And 2. Gain adrenaline when you reach low life if you don't have adrenaline. Without getting too into the weeds of describing how damage works in Path of Exile, don't worry, I'll make a video about that. You can read the first line, as all enemies take 10% more physical damage from attacks. This acts as a more multiplier for all of our damage in this build. The second line reads, when you have adrenaline, you do 100% increased damage, which no, doesn't mean double damage. Just think of this like 8 additional passive points, and 25% increased attack speed, and 10% reduced physical damage taken. Adrenaline is a 20-second buff. So altogether, when you have adrenaline up, that's 10% more damage, 100% increased damage, and 25% attack speed. The next important node is Conqueror, 100% chance to taunt an enemy on hit. This works together with Worthy Foe, which gives us enemies you taunt take 20% increased damage, and enemies taunted by you cannot evade attacks. You'll notice the takes increased damage wording that we first saw on First to Strike, Last to Fall. These two modifiers stack additively together to give us 30% more damage. Also, since enemies we hit can no longer evade attacks, that means accuracy and blind no longer reduce our damage once we land the first hit. This frees us up from needing to get accuracy at all. So we're looking at 30% more damage, 100% increased damage, 25% attack speed, and ignoring accuracy. Overall, pretty crazy. Now you may be wondering, but how do we ensure that we have adrenaline when it really matters? Great question. That'll bring us to our adrenaline and survivability section. As we just went over, adrenaline provides a lot of damage, but it's only a 20-second buff you get after reaching low life. For bosses, what I do is get close to engaging the boss, then weapon swap. In my weapon swap, I have a Blasphemy Blood Magic Curse. Casting this aura causes me to reserve all but 32% of my total life, bringing me down below the 35% threshold for low life. This grants me adrenaline instantaneously. Next, I weapon swap back to remove the aura and to get back to my DPS weapons. Lastly, I use my Panicked Eternal Life Flask to heal. Since I'm on low life, this flask is now an instant flask. Also, as you recall, we get 60% increased life recovery from flasks when used on low life from our minor Pantheon power. We're also picking up herbalism from the passive tree. Now our one simple life flask will heal us nearly back to full life completely. This also helps explain why my health seems kinda spiky in some of my boss fights or while mapping. I can take a big hit, Soul of Solaris helps it to not be fatal, and then I bounce back to full health right away thanks to Flask and Leech. As a side note, people have asked why I don't use Blood Magic Purity of Elements instead of a Blasphemy. It's because Purity has over a second cast speed, while Blasphemy is less than half a second. If you're going to be brave and self-adrenaline between boss phases, I recommend the faster cast. Next, let's talk about 6-linking Reave and Blade Flurry. I clear maps with Reave primarily, and can kill most bosses with it as well. Depending on the content you're running, you may just swap Concentrated Effect in for bossing. If you really want the big damage, I recommend swapping into Blade Flurry. It can take a bit to get used to, but here's the best way to do it without screwing up your keybinds. Step 1. Have your keybinds full for Vol Reave. Step 2. Weapon swap and grab Blade Flurry. Step 3. Weapon swap again and switch Blade Flurry in. This is important because if you're on a weapon swap, any skills that are in your weapons are no longer on your bar. In my case, it's Leap Slam, but Reave is still on your bars. If you switch gems while on your bad weapons, your Blade Flurry will take the place of your Leap Slam, not your Reave. Step 4. Weapon swap again, drop Reave in, grab elemental damage with attacks, and swap it for multi-strike. Step 5. Last weapon swap, go kill that boss. If you want, you can have these extra gems in your inventory, or whatever works for you. This is what I found to be the easiest. Since I farm almost exclusively Uber Elder, there's plenty of times to swap gems while Elder is taking his time being dramatic. Lastly, let's talk leveling. I play softcore and prefer to level with Sunder with an emphasis on going fast. When leveling, the large majority of the time sink is simply moving through the storyline, so I get a lot of attack speed in order to leap slam my way to maps pronto. We'll start off with a more speed-focused tree and transition into more life later on. You shouldn't need to worry about buying regrets, as you'll get a lot from leveling. Starting off, I like to go down the right side of the duelist tree, through the attack speed and dual wield nodes, till I get to cloth and chain. The 15 all resistance here is really nice for leveling smoothly, especially because we won't be picking up much life. Next, get the first attack damage node attached to duelist, and proceed to Resolute Technique. This is also nice for leveling, as missing stinks. Around this time, I'd recommend buying an Orm Vorax for a stat stick. Even at the start of the league, this weapon is extremely cheap, and with a perfect roll, you're now resistance capped until Act 6, so you can focus 100% on taking damage and life stats everywhere else. Make sure you're using a nice one-handed axe that has high physical damage. Next, I like to go up to the Scion Life Wheel, grab Berserking for the attack speed, and then head east towards the Sword Wheel, then proceed to the Shadow section of the tree. Around this time, you should be getting close to 65, where I like to transition into using Reave and going crit. You can swap some of your points around to do this, and make sure you're using a Diamond Flask. When you do switch to Reave, make sure you get rid of the Orm Vorax in your offhand, and replace it with a Scepter stat stick. From here, just fill in your tree as you want, towards the endgame tree. If you need intelligence, I recommend either taking a 30 intelligence node, or getting the Jewel node in Shadow. Well, hopefully that helped clarify a few things that I left out in my video. You can catch me live at twitch.tv/DonTheCrown. Thank you very much.